A nice fancy intro.
Right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Windbreaker podcast. I'm Yahtzee. Marty's here as usual.
Hi, Ron.
And we've got an extra special guest this week. We've got Miracle of Sound himself, former Escapist bod, Gavin Dunne. How you doing, Gav?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're doing excellent.
Pretty good now. We've all got away from the Escapist. Because you got out way before everyone else did. Yeah.
Yeah, I got out pretty early. I don't like drama. So
No,
I was like, you know what? I like a quiet life, so I'm going to get out of here while things are good. And yeah. That was the same one of the reasons I left Podquisition with Laura and Jim as well, because I love those two to bits, but they are no strangers to drama.
No.
And I was like getting blocked by video game companies and stuff, and I was just like, you know what? I don't need this. My job is in the video game industry, so speaking about video games isn't an essential part of my job.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well,
that's incredibly Irish of you. Just definitely Irish of you, and I love it.
Yeah.
Just want to
let me just correct myself there.
Yeah.
I think I once said to you, you're just too nice for the internet sometimes, Gav.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Because after you left Escapist, it's just been strength to strength for you, hasn't it? I was looking you up on Wikipedia, and did you know you're Ireland's most successful indie musician?
That's arguable, honestly. I'm not sure about that now. That was actually me being misquoted from an article that was a long time ago. I said one of the most successful.
There's no lies on Wikipedia. Wikipedia is just truth all the way top to bottom.
Yeah. In terms of
you've got super viral, haven't you? More than once.
Yeah, in the last couple of years it went super viral. In terms of Spotify listeners, it's probably pretty high up there in terms of Ireland's biggest artists now, but I don't know about biggest or most successful, that's very hard to measure. And I was, especially in the era we're in now, it's very much gone into a social media era with TikTok and everything. There are a lot of Irish indie stars who are quite famous now, and much more than me, because I'm pretty niche.
Well, yeah, but niches can be rewarding.
Yeah, especially if you're on not on a record label and keep all of your money.
Oh yeah,
you say you're niche, but I went to your YouTube page and I went by popular, and you have a video that's over 100 million views. That's insane. That's so many views.
I have a couple of videos that are over 100 million.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
My niche is the entire population of Switzerland.
Yeah.
So for the viewers who might not be more as familiar with you, Gav, sum up Miracle of Sound in a nutshell, and maybe tell us what some of your most famous songs were.
So Miracle of Sound is my music project that I've been doing for quite a while now. I think it was 2011 it started. And a lot of the songs are inspired by other subject matter like video games and TV shows and things. So it's very, very nerd-friendly music. And it's kind of gradually grown through the years and gotten bigger and bigger. And a couple of years ago, the song Valhalla Calling really blew up. So that's how I would imagine anyone who's ever heard of me for the first time these days, they hear Valhalla Calling, and that's how they find my music. But there are over 200 other songs to go and listen to when you find that one, which is great.
So
not really, it's hard to describe the project because musically it's so diverse. There's folk music, there's symphonic metal, there's even jazz and weird J-pop kind of songs in there in places. So I don't really know. I never know how to describe it musically.
So when you say you're influenced by video game music, you're influenced by the entire spectrum of video game music. It's not just this one small section of AAA games. It's
and not even just video game music, to be honest. I always think from even the songs that are inspired by video games, I think of them more on a songwriting, more traditional songwriting point of view. They're basically pop structure songs. A lot of them are the Elden Ring song we put out this year about Melania is a nearly 8-minute long symphonic metal song, which was a little bit inspired by the soundtrack of the game, but also by bands like Nightwish and Cradle of Filth and what have you.
Yeah.
So this has led to you doing like live performances and stuff as well, don't you? You're not just internet cred.
Yeah, well, actually, I've basically The Escapist were the only two tiny little live shows I ever did, and that was a long time ago. And I haven't performed live since then. And we're going out on tour next year, like a proper tour of Europe, and we're doing actual proper metal festivals. So the scope of Miracle of Sound now has expanded so far beyond like gaming stuff. We actually have like an audience now who's a mix of gamers and just like music fans, like people on Spotify who have no idea what the song was written about, but just like the song, you know.
Mhm.
And I think that's because the style of writing has changed. Like I'm sure you, Yahtzee, will remember the days when the songs were very memey, and the song was literally called Commander Shepard. Whereas nowadays the songs are written in a way that anyone can enjoy the song, whether they know anything about a video game or not, you know. And actually, the next project I'm working on at the moment has nothing to do with video games at all. It's like a Celtic Irish dark folk metal album, which is much more based in like Irish mythology and history and stuff. So hopefully that will do as well as the gaming stuff.
So do you find much time for actually playing games still these days?
No, and I knew this question would come up, and I haven't barely played a video game this year. Because I've just been so overwhelmed because the project expanded a lot this year. Because we're going on tour next year, I have a lot to organize, and because we're finally doing some physical media, and just with running social media and running all this by myself, it's been a lot. And I finally got a manager a couple of weeks ago, and that's been life changing. So hopefully I'll have some time to video game now. The only thing I've played like in the last 2 months was like a little tiny bit of the Starfield DLC. And I just didn't really play very much of it, to be honest. So I can't tell you whether it's good or not.
Well, from everything I hear, it didn't exactly take the universe by storm. Did you play the original Starfield? I assume you played the original Starfield if you got the DLC.
Yeah, it didn't grab me the same way as Fallout and Elder Scrolls. And for me, that was about. I think if Starfield was set in like maybe 1 or 2 planets with a handcrafted open world, I would have liked it a lot more.
Yeah, the second they revealed the game and they said, "Oh, there's hundreds of planets you can go to, procedurally generate," and as soon as they said that, I'm like, "Well, this isn't my cup of tea right here. Like, this isn't a kind of thing. I don't want to go to a place that just feels like a barren landscape that an artist didn't really have a thumbprint on."
Exactly, and that's the magic of Bethesda games, isn't it? The handcrafted worlds.
Yeah,
that's what they're the best at.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, procedural, it's in. It's the thing people like.
Yeah, it feels like there's kind of been a backlash against that. I don't know. I almost feel like the pendulum's swinging back around to where I think there was a time where people like games need to be hundreds of hours long and have infinite worlds to explore and yada, yada, yada. And I almost feel like it's, I don't know, maybe it's with certain generations of players getting a little bit older whose free time might be more valuable, or they might have less of it than they did when they were in high school or college, saying, well, maybe what if this thing was only like 20 hours long and I could see all the best bits of it in one run through? That might be neat.
Yeah, or even a longer RPG that doesn't have to be endless. I mean, hopefully the success of Baldur's Gate and Elden Ring will show developers that gamers, if a finite experience is okay once it's really good, you know?
Yeah, well, those things like focus on doing one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, relevantly, I think the most recent standout in terms of video game music would have been Metaphor Refantazio. I'm sure you'll agree, Marty.
I will absolutely agree. People were wondering how long it was going to take for us to talk about Persona. And look, we didn't talk about Persona first. We talked about Metaphor first. So think about that.
Yeah, well, there, tricked you. Yeah, there's 2 games whose soundtracks I would just listen to as like a song by itself. One of them is like Persona 5, maybe Persona 4 sometimes, and the other one is Silent Hill 2, which have both become relevant in recent times.
Yeah.
I've never played Persona.
Have you never played Persona?
No, the idea of just being in high school doesn't appeal to me.
So maybe this new one might be for you. Yeah.
Yeah. They finally got away from high school for Metaphor, and now they don't let you romance any of the female characters. What are you doing, Atlas?
What are you doing? But yeah, the soundtracks, the composer of Metaphor Refantazio is the same guy who's been composing music for the series since, Personas 3 and 4 and 5, Maguro-san. And every game feels like he very much is taking inspirations from a different genre. Like some of the Persona, it feels like a little bit like of a jazz inspiration or more of a rock inspiration. Whereas Metaphor, I wouldn't even know exactly what the inspiration is here. It just feels like a sort of a modern high fantasy adventure, but pulled in a bunch of different directions.
I know, it's weird. I described it as sort of generic, bombastic, epic fantasy, and everyone got on my ass for using the word generic because everyone wants to talk about how there's a lyrical track of some dude singing Esperanto in like a weirdly fast, like rolling down a staircase sort of way.
I didn't know you spoke Esperanto. That's huge.
No, well, it's one of the many hidden strings to my bow.
Yeah. But Esperanto makes sense in a game like that, where if Esperanto was a language that was supposed to be created to bring cultures together under one sort of communal roof, and it's ostensibly a game about the same thing.
And all cultures came together and said, we don't want to have to learn another bloody language. Piss off.
Yeah. You also mentioned Silent Hill 2. Did you think that Silent Hill 2 remake sort of struck a strong chord music-wise with you?
Well, yes, because for the most part, it was the exact same music that they just copied and played in exactly the same context it had been played in before.
Mm-hmm.
Like that wonderful Promise Reprise that plays during Angela's mirror scene.
Yeah, that's
one of the songs I'll just listen to by itself every now and again. Etc.
It helps that Akira Yamaoka has been kind of involved in it the entire time, very much being like, I don't want to lose control over this. Yeah,
basically everything Silent Hill related, they bring him back to do the music.
Gav, growing up playing games, like, do you remember the kind of the first games you played where the soundtrack was a thing, where it was like a thing you noticed, where you were like thinking about the soundtrack, either in terms of outside the game or even like how it sort of interacted with the game itself?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like obviously, like being an 80s kid, we had the NES, so the Mario Brothers 1 soundtrack is the obvious one. But I think the first video game soundtrack I really, really loved was A Link to the Past. And also that was the first video game that I really, really, really loved. So I think the soundtrack for that just brings back such like nostalgia for me, particularly the main theme when you're roaming around the overworld. And it's just the Zelda music is so beautifully written. It's so good. You just, the fact that theme sounds as fresh today as it always did,
I always think video game music was much more melodious back when they had far less to work with, back in chiptunes days.
Yeah, I think it's a trend. Sorry, you go ahead.
No, go on. Yeah.
I was going to say that's been a trend in cinema as well. There aren't as many memorable theme songs in movies nowadays.
Every trailer's got the same that one music. That one's, or they just have a slowed down soulful version of a fast pop track.
Yeah, I mean, you even think of like, if I guess 5 years ago, superhero movies were like the genre du jour, and if you think about the original, like the Richard Donner Superman or the Tim Burton Batman, like those soundtracks are as iconic as the movies themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas like a lot of these Avengers movies, like I don't know what like Iron Man's song is or Captain America's like theme song. It all kind of just
compared to like the Indiana Jones theme or Star Wars or Superman,
all the John Williams stuff.
Yeah.
Also, side note, do you remember?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Side note, do you remember when movie trailers had voiceovers and they were all done by the same guy?
Yes, I do.
Oh, that was you.
They were the best of times.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. The worst trend with movie trailers, the current one, is when they have the short, like 3-second montage before the trailer starts. Yeah. And I understand it's for like social media and like people who have like
it's so you don't press the skip button. Yeah.
It's
and
so annoying.
trailers have mad fucking spoilers in them these days. Like they have like the whole movie in the trailer, and you feel, well, I don't need to see it now. So thanks.
Especially if you like, I'm a big horror movie fan, and I feel like you get the big scares and set pieces of a horror movie spoiled by every trailer. And I guess I don't know, like you need to sort of feed the audience all the cool bits in order to get them in. Or
another real cliche in them now is that there's always like there'll be the action sequence, and then you'll hear the bass drop go, and then there'll be some witty comment.
How does that stuff like enter? Like, how does that just become like the language of?
And let's not forget the slow, dark, moody version of an 80s pop hit.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Do you remember when there was that first trailer for the Ghostbusters remake, and they just had the Ghostbusters theme played on a sad piano?
Oh yeah.
I don't think you guys understood what Ghostbusters was about. Do you think, sort of speaking of licensed music like that, do you were there any standout games with licensed soundtracks? I mean, obviously, like I feel like Grand Theft Auto Vice City was the first one I ever played, where I was also just right at that age to where like I'd kind of heard the songs, but suddenly I was like, oh man, I got to track down like all these 80s songs, and I feel like it was from there that
you can't really beat Rockstar for that, can you? I mean, they're the absolute emperor of licensed music in the game. Vice City is very popular, but for me, San Andreas is the one where I really, really love the radio stations.
Yeah, they really pushed the boat out for that one. But the most recent game that had licensed music that jumped out for me would be Hi-Fi Rush, I think.
Yeah, and that did an interesting thing of actually entwining it with the gameplay, because you were ostensibly playing through the songs.
Yeah, I think that was really well done.
Yeah. I thought the Guardians of the Galaxy game from a couple of years ago, which is a game that was like good at the time but felt a little forgettable, is one that has kind of burrowed in me, and that had some good musical moments that again tied into the character, because the character has his mixtape that he always goes back to.
It was always that was the thing they copied from the movies, and they had this weird approach to it where you had this sort of like charge up superpower thing where you'd call a huddle and inspire your teammates. And then the remainder of the fight would play out over a random song from the playlist, which every now and again would be something like Kickstart Your Heart or something that makes sense to play over like pitched combat. But one time I did that, and the song was Don't Worry, Be Happy, which felt a bit incongruous as I proceeded to blast the shit out of the dudes.
Or somehow perfect.
Yeah.
I did a song inspired by the first movie, and it was really fun to make because it was like using a bunch of production tricks to make it feel like it was from the 70s or maybe early 80s. So it was like a challenge, but really fun. The song is called Friends, by the way, but look it up after the podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
Or you can look it up during the podcast and listen to it. Just have it drown us out, and it's fine. We'll still be here.
Put it on in the background.
Yeah. I always know a game's soundtrack, whether it's the actual score or the licensed music, is good when it causes me to stop doing whatever I'm doing. Like in you can get the various cassettes in Metal Gear Solid 5 and like put them on, and you could put on like like Kim Wilde's like Kids in America, and I'm like, well, I could be storming this base, or I could just listen to the song right now, and that sounds great.
Yeah, does that ever happen to you where you're playing a game and you just stop playing and just sit there kind of listening to the music going
well, when you said that, my first thought was Killer 7, where they have this incredible like high tempo disco track that plays literally in one corridor, in like a recurring corridor that I think the song's called Rave On. So I'd just stay in that corridor for like 5 minutes going up and down the stairs listening to that one song.
That happened to me last year when I was playing Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty. There's this one mission in that game where you're in a situation and you have to escape from a stadium. And the fucking soundtrack that's playing in that action-packed mission is one of the best things I've ever heard in or out of a video game. So it was I kind of ruined the level for myself because it was like supposed to be this hyper tense kind of like escape, but my character was just standing there listening to the music behind a box while all the characters were running around shooting. I was like, oh, I don't want this to end because the music is so goddamn good.
Yeah,
I guess that's why
Marcin's an incredible composer, and he's just so good. And I'm very lucky to have got to work with him before on a video game.
Really?
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy.
Is that one of the things Miracle of Sound has brought in for you, the collaborations with actual games?
No, that was a once-off, actually. I don't do it very often, and actually, I don't want to do video game soundtracks because I like to own my music. And
fair enough.
Yeah, the time investment that's put into it, and I also like to control my music and do it the way I want to do it. So video game soundtracks so far just haven't been an appealing thing for me. But what I do like to do is a sponsored promotional song for games. I've done that a few times. So they pay me money to promote their game and I will make a song. But the deal breakers for me are I own the song and I do the song the way I want to do it. So sometimes
that's my approach to ad reads.
Yes, and sometimes that doesn't work for video game companies, and that's perfectly fair. And I get it.
When you were mentioning the cyberpunk thing, that's also, I felt like that's been a growing trend of specific moments in games where you can very much feel like the kind of the authorial thumbprint of like, we want this exact section to sound like this, so it does feel like that moment in a movie where the score swells up and you're doing things like that. And I feel like I probably am gonna bring up Kojima a million times, but there's a couple moments in Death Stranding to where, and it's mostly when you're just going from one place to another, when you're traveling across the world, and you'll like come over a rise and the camera will zoom out and you'll see your destination, and then like he'll choose a track from, like, he had like Low Roar and Silent Poets on the soundtrack, and just like his ability to needle drop in that exact moment is such like an incredible and powerful thing that makes sense for a guy like Kojima, who clearly seemingly consumes all other media that isn't video games much more than video games themselves, which I think is partly why his games are so unique.
Yes. And then again, you have that bit in Metal Gear Solid 3 where he just starts playing the theme tune while you're climbing a ladder.
What a good moment. What a good... See, he knows. He knows. He's got you wrapped around his finger.
Remedy are also extremely good at that.
Yeah.
I was about to bring that up. Yeah, the chat's mentioning the Herald of Darkness sequence in Alan Wake 2.
Dude, that was fucking amazing.
Yeah. the ashtray maze in Alan Wake 1.
Yeah, the ashtray maze.
Or not in Control. Yeah.
I actually didn't enjoy Alan Wake 2 as much as the first game, for various reasons, the respawning enemies being a huge one. But that fucking section was the best thing I've played in years.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I sometimes feel like Remedy might be happier making movies or TV shows, because half all the really good parts of their game, it's like very well directed stuff, or like live action video stuff.
Well, I think that section in Alan Wake was genius because it did use the medium as the medium, like with the guys on the screen pointing which direction for you to go and stuff. I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, their approach. I mean, I guess what it started. Even like Max Payne, I guess, did the thing with sort of the graphic novel cutscenes, and then Quantum Break them like positing it as this thing where you watch episodes of a television series in between levels of the game, and that gives you the story.
It's an awkward little Venn diagram you have to occupy. Because, I play all the video games. I play tons of video games. I never stop. But as you know, Marty, I very rarely watch TV and almost never watch movies.
Yeah, and you're very much like, if control is taken away from you,
I get antsy.
The movie at this point.
Yes, I have every time I have to sit and watch something, I have to get my phone out and play Bejeweled.
The way these games were intended. They Bejeweled while the cutscene rolls.
Sometimes I do that while cutscenes are playing in like video games.
Yeah,
because I just get bored, and like character drama between people makes me uncomfortable. Yeah, I'm like you, Gav. I can't stand conflict and nastiness. So I've been playing that A Quiet Place game that just came out, and early on, you're this character who's just completely bloody useless because you've got asthma and stomach problems, And
I have asthma and stomach problems. Does that mean I'm useless?
Yeah, and like 2 characters established in the game like die because of you trying to save you, and those characters have a mother who gets really pissed off at you, and then I get uncomfortable watching as like having to interact with that character. I'm afraid she might yell at me.
Bring up too many traumatic memories.
This is why I didn't like Last of Us 2, which I'm not sure had good music. I don't really remember.
It had a good and it had a pretty strong example of that Pearl Jam song, Future Days, being a part of like the story of
and speaking of like, I just remembered speaking of like slow, soulful remakes of 80s hits, where the main character plays Take On Me on the acoustic guitar in a really slow...
There's some really nice diegetic music in that game. But I had a hard time with that game too. I found... Just on an emotional level, I found that game difficult to get through because it was so relentlessly miserable all the way through.
Yeah.
It just started to wear on me.
And I get that's the point.
And actually, it wasn't that big moment that did it for me. It was a couple of moments later when some other characters kind of got killed off and in seemingly very callous by the writer's ways. I was just like, what? Come on. Really? What was the last 10 hours for then? You know, like, I don't know. And I just thought, I much preferred the first game. Like, wildly preferred the first game. So
it's also, I feel like The Last of Us 2, I actually really enjoyed it. I do think it has a similar problem to the Silent Hill 2 remake, which is experiences like that go on too long. Become like legitimately exhausting, and not in a good way. Sometimes you'll watch a movie and feel exhausted afterwards I think in a really good way, but in this was like 20, it's like 20 after 20 hours you're like, I feel like I'm in hell right now.
Yeah, man, I read Crime and Punishment last month and I found that less exhausting than The Last of Us 2.
Here you go, box quote. More harrowing than Crime and Punishment.
More depressing than Crime and Punishment.
Silent Hill 2 remake, they just extend everything by a factor of 3. I remember going to the prison section, which in the original game was like one map, and like picking up the map and then leaping through the maps I'd just been given, 1, 2, 3, 4, steady on.
And then you have to keep unlocking the different doors from the thing in the courtyard. I was like, how is this is taking me so long to get through?
And I had the opposite problem with the Resident Evil 4 remake. I was like, I really hope they've made the mansion like even bigger, but for some reason the mansion felt really short in the remake. And I
know what you mean. The castle in the original game feels like it goes on for ages, and it definitely feels pruned down a bit.
I don't know why I said mansion. The castle, that's what I meant.
Hey, what is a castle if not a European mansion?
Yeah.
What about are there any game soundtracks or games that like where the core mechanic revolves around music that that stick out to you? I mean, not so much as like, I'm not thinking like a rock bandy thing, but like, did either of you guys ever play Soundscapes? Do you remember that game? It was like a PS3 Vita indie game. It was like a 2D puzzle platformer, but each screen, like everything you do adds elements to the score or to the music. And like each level, like there's a level that's a Beck song and it starts silent, but everything you're doing is slowly kind of folding in elements of the song, instruments and bass lines and the vocal tracks and everything. I always found stuff like that, or even like Res, where the music gets sort of bigger and more bombastic the better you do, or quieter the worse you do, to be super super fascinating.
Because there's two kinds of rhythm games that I see. There's the rhythm game where you have to press a button in time with the things appearing on the screen, like your Guitar Hero. But there's other kinds of rhythm games where monsters appear in time with the music, and you just have to dodge them. Did you play? What was it called? It was like Undertale, but with Guitar Hero. Come on, someone will know.
Crypt of the Necrodancer?
No. Come on, Chad, help me out here. You were like a little puppet man with one arm. Everhood, thank you, Speakeasy.
A little puppet man with one arm. I've never even heard of this game. I think it's made up.
Well, it's a game where you play as. Do you remember the little puppet dude in Super Mario RPG?
I do, Gino.
Yeah, it's basically him, but with one arm and wearing red and kind of a badass. And the combat in that game is basically you sitting on a Guitar Hero board, and you have to dodge the things as they come in at you.
Oh, weird.
It's an interesting game. I'd check it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like those are games you can't. A lot of games I now play kind of passively on like a Steam Deck while doing something else, whereas with these, they feel very much like you've noticed, Yahtzee, it's hard to play these rhythm-based games on a stream when it's like I need to also interact with chat and goof around with like the co-host. Like,
yeah, I did pretty well.
PM or one of those Metal Hellsing or anything.
I don't know how you do that. Like, I'll never understand how people can play games with people watching them.
I always put it on. My secret is I put it on easy. Like, I play through Silent Hill 2 just on easy, and I'm like, well,
I don't. I play on stream badly.
Yeah, you just play badly.
I keep saying on stream, if when I'm on stream, I play about 60% worse. So please don't judge me from what you're about to see. And yeah, I did really well on Hi-Fi Rush the moment I started streaming the bloody thing.
Yeah.
I just
if I were a streamer, I would be the most boring streamer ever because I'd be walking around Skellige just listening to the music, and Geralt would just be standing there for 5 minutes.
I'm gonna be honest. There's absolutely an audience for that. People who would just be like, "Yes, let us soak it in."
Yeah, I guess you have to learn to engage your stream of consciousness. I just sort of opine as I go. Yeah. Which helps because I find it easy to form opinions on video games because I've played so many and so many of them suck.
Yeah.
So many of them suck, you monster.
I've been finding I was starting to think maybe it's just me getting older that I'm finding less and less new releases interesting to me these days.
No, I think that's just because modern games suck.
Modern AAA games are feeling soulless. So if we're looking at AAA stuff, I do feel like they feel much more soulless than in 2007 or something.
But I still play indies that get me excited to this day. I think you just gotta look at the non-mainstream stuff, like UFO 50. I've been playing a lot of that in my spare time.
Yeah,
have you seen that, Gav? That's like 50 NES-styled games in one.
Oh wow!
Compiled together.
Yeah, there's a sort of made Spelunky. Made almost, it's like the whole idea of it is like they unearthed a forgotten console that never existed throughout the 80s, and so it has these 50 completely full games that feel like they were made from like 83 to 90 or whatever in all different genres, but it's like complete games. It's not just like little bite-sized WarioWare things. It's 50 games you could have bought from the drugstore. Yeah, and
they're all completely unique gameplay concepts. And as I said in my last Yahtzee Tries, it really illustrates how creatively bankrupt the mainstream industry is these days. Where they just bring out the same bloody open worlds and the same bloody shooters all the time.
The only new game I spent any real time on this year was Final Fantasy VII. Rebirth is not the name of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's confusing. There was Remake, then there was Rebirth, and Rebirth was the sequel to Remake.
Yeah, and Rebirth is good. I could have done without a lot of the mini games. But I liked it overall. I thought it was very good.
Well, you lose about 50% of the game if you cut the mini games out of that.
I mean, it's a long game, so that would be okay with me, and I'm a busy person. So.
No, I was never able to finish it in the time I had.
Yeah.
But then I tend to expect that with JRPGs.
That's another one with an interesting soundtrack that is part original music, but then that music is woven into the kind of iconic songs that people remember from 25 years ago.
It's really only the retro times that had iconic music, and now all the new updates to those games have like the full orchestral versions of those original ditties, like the Final Fantasy music at the start where it goes do 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 do. They've remade that song like 90 billion times at this rate.
I have to say, hearing the main overworld theme was really nice in the first area, done orchestral, like it's like
yeah.
It's just such a beautiful theme.
And especially to sort of juxtapose it with like the memories of playing it as a kid and it feeling like such a big world, but then now being like, obviously,
I never played the original as a kid.
So that's but that's I mean, if the moment hit for you, then that shows the power of the moment.
In 1995, I discovered guitars. And I didn't play video games for like almost a whole decade. The next game I played after 1995 was like Gears of War 1. Like that's
I thought
the
you were saying
break.
Guitar Hero.
That's how long the break I took from video games was.
Did you ever like go back and like try to play catch up, or were you just like, well, whatever, I'll jump back in from now? Yeah.
Oh no, absolutely played catch up. Went through all the PS2 stuff, Silent Hill, Metal Gear, the God of War series, Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. What a fucking amazing series!
Yeah,
I love that. I love that game.
That was the era where the triple, like all the publishers and developers that people now kind of bemoan, like your Ubisofts or Sony or anything, like we're just releasing bangers. Then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I know Ubisoft used to be good.
They were better. They were like great. They were like top tier AAA publishers.
Back in their Sands of Time, Beyond Good and Evil days, I was like, they were the AAA publisher I would go to bat for. But
early Assassin's Creed, early Far Cry, and then I guess all the bad hats rubbed off on everyone.
Yeah, see, there's going to be moments where I can't really comment on developers because I work with a few of them.
Sure,
so, yeah. My respect for Ubisoft has always been good, and they've always been good to me. So
greatest publisher ever.
Yes.
We have one of our coworkers, KC.
I genuinely still enjoy the Assassin's Creed games. So like, yeah. I mean, I really liked Mirage. I actually liked Mirage more than I liked Valhalla.
So did I, because it felt a little smaller and like, I was able to wrap my head around this. Sometimes
it was originally going to be the DLC for Valhalla, wasn't it?
Was it?
I actually don't know.
As I understand it, because it's got like a character who was introduced in Valhalla as
it had the guy who was introduced in Origins, I think, right? Bayek? Or did I make that up? I might have made that up.
No,
We'll just pretend that was
it's the guy who's at the start of Valhalla who sort of recruits the
Basim, maybe? Is it Basim?
Yeah, Basim.
Oh, Basim. Yeah, that's it.
It's that guy.
That guy.
Yeah, and he's kind of, it's interesting because he's kind of well, actually I can't, it could be a spoiler if I were to speak about who he is and what he is. So.
Ooh. I bet he's an assassin
I don't want
or
to do
a Templar.
Spoilers.
Well, I looked it up on Wikipedia because I didn't ever finish Valhalla, but I played through Mirage, and I was like, you know what? Mirage sort of feels like I'm supposed to know something I don't actually know. So I went and looked up the plot of Valhalla and went, oh, okay.
Yeah, with series like that, it can be overwhelming to feel like that's almost like the modern cinematic
Welcome
universe.
to how I feel about Marvel. Every time I watch a Marvel movie, I'm like, what the fuck? Who are these people? Why is the movie treating me like I should know fucking 15 TV series worth of lore here? You know
what they've done? They've successfully turned movies into superhero comics. That's why I never read superhero comics back in the day.
Yeah. And even when they say like, oh, you don't need any backstory in this one, it's like, well, no, you're going to enter it and be like, well, who the fuck are all these people?
I'm so bored of that genre now. Like, I was so excited when Spider-Man and Iron Man movies were coming out at originally. Like, oh my god, nerd movies, amazing. And now and anytime a new Marvel movie is introduced, I'm like,
yeah,
it feels like a real monkey's paw thing, right? Where it's like, this is always what I wanted, and you're like, well, this is all you're gonna get now. You're like, well, no, I don't want.
It's become a little too ubiquitous, and I feel it took over the movie industry a little too much because there's not so much space for other movies now,
Yeah, I think you're seeing the backlash there of things that were assumed surefire hits kind of bombing, like even the Joker 2 bombing at the theaters the other week. I think it kind of proves people are getting a little sick.
I haven't seen actually. Movies are another thing. I think the last movie I saw was Dune Part 2 in the cinema.
That's a good one to see.
Well, you're doing better than me.
No.
Yeah.
The last Marvel movie I saw was the first Guardians of the Galaxy, I think.
Oh wow.
That was a long time ago. That was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I got really back into reading this year. That's been my hobby this year. Yeah, I love.
Yeah, I've been trying to read more because I'm trying to start my next book, and it feels disingenuous to not be in a book ready sort of mood before you start writing the fucking things. Well, we've got piles of super chats, so I'm going to start on those.
Yeah, there's a bunch of games I didn't bring up during the chat just because I'm seeing people bring them up here.
Yeah,
I made when I saw what the chat was about, I made like a little list of all my favorite soundtracks, so I can rattle them off to you whenever you want.
Oh, you want to start with those? I would actually love to hear that.
Okay, will I just like rattle off the list really quickly, and then we can talk about any that jump out at you?
Hell yeah!
Yeah, go nuts.
Okay, so the two that I actually listened to, like you said earlier, Yahtzee, would be Deus Ex Human Revolution and Assassin's Creed 2. Jesper Kid is fucking amazing. And then one that stood out to me recently was Starfield. That had a lovely soundtrack. Obviously Skyrim, and Elder Scrolls Online has a beautiful underrated soundtrack. That game has just gorgeous music.
I feel like there's a bunch of MMOs. Well, not a bunch. I feel like Elder Scrolls Online and Final Fantasy 14. People are always saying like these have some of the best soundtracks in modern gaming, and it's just like MMOs are such a like genre I can't break through that I feel like I'm missing out. Even though I love Final Fantasy, but
I don't play MMOs either, and that's why I play Elder Scrolls Online.
There you go.
you can play that like a single player game. Like you can just do like quests and things, and you don't ever have to interact with anyone. So
the loneliest MMO.
Yeah. And then I'm a basic bitch, so the obvious ones like Doom, Halo 3, Mass Effect 2, Cyberpunk, Witcher 3, and every Supergiant game.
Oh yeah. I love how they just have the excuse for a little vocal track in there somewhere.
Always, yeah.
And I think having like the in-house, like Darren Korb, the in-house composer, and then like it lends like you can, in the same way that their games evolve mechanically across the 4 of them, or I guess upcoming 5 of them, like you can feel the score do that as well, and you can feel like the similarities and the differences between them. Incredible music.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Actually, my wife and I have this thing where if one of us falls asleep on the couch, the other one will put on like the Skyrim soundtrack. Because it's just so lovely and relaxing to sleep to.
Yeah.
That's a nice thing to wake up
dreams.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get through these because, as I say, there's quite a lot. Let's get started. Yeah. Dr. Theo gives $5. Says, I already know you'll bring up Persona 5. Very perceptive of you, Dr. Theo. Speaking of, finally beat it for the first time 2 days ago. My first JRPG completion ever. Took a while.
Wow. Yeah, you picked a 100-hour one to be your first.
Yeah. I think the first JRPG I finished was Earthbound.
Yeah. I feel like those Super Nintendo generation ones are like the easiest ones to recommend people for a first, just because you can get through them much faster than like Chrono Trigger, like 15 hours or whatever.
Well, I played Chrono Trigger, but then I got to the point where the boss fights were suddenly like just 45 minutes of attacking and healing over and over again, and I got bored.
Earthbound also has an amazing soundtrack by
Tanaka.
Someone in the chat mentioned the suicide mission from Mass Effect 2, and I'm like, 100% agree.
Oh man, Mass Effect is one of my.
Sam Hulick doesn't get enough credit for that series. He's a great guy, a friend of mine, and he did amazing music in that series.
I had a similar moment when you were you said you discovered guitars and stopped playing games for a while. I discovered girls, and I turned of age to go to bars, and I stopped playing games for like 5 or 7 years. And so there's like a span in there where it's like the mid to late 2000s to early teens.
That also comes with discovering guitars, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure those are all shorthand there. To where I had to play catch up with a lot of things, but I missed a lot of from the Mass Effect trilogy to Skyrim to Fallout 3. Just a lot of kind of empty spots there in my backlog.
Seminal experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Gives $2 and says, someone brought up Persona 5. I get to bring up Meta Ray, which I guess is how we've decided to shorten Metaphor Refantazio these days.
I mean, it's a real. I don't know how. Do you just call it Metaphor? I think that's the easy way to shorten it, right? Just call it Metaphor.
Yeah, I just say Metaphor.
Yeah. I need more time to know if that soundtrack's going to stick with me in the same way Personas 3, 4, and 5 do.
The hallmark for this sort of thing is if you can bring to mind the song, and I can certainly bring to mind the Metaphor battle music.
Yeah. I guess that. If it's an earworm to that point, then
it'll never beat "Takeover" for me, though. "Takeover" is a song I put on if I feel like I want to get something done.
Look at that! I like it.
Now it's that and "Kickstart My Heart," the two songs that make me feel like getting things done.
That is such a tune. Oh, that intro is just so fucking good. Oh my god, and it just reminded me of another game with amazing music, fucking Brutal Legend.
Oh yeah.
And that song was in that game, and it was just amazing driving your like lame mobile around with that song blaring. And We Are the Road Crew by Motorhead.
Yeah.
Impossible not to feel motivated.
It's such a shame that it was an RTS.
Yeah. Yeah, what if it was just like kind of like a neat little Zelda adventure? And you're like, no, we got some RTS.
I think if that game had been a straight up hack and slash adventure, it would have actually been way more successful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my approach to it was just do some like spawn some token troops and then do all the work myself by running people over in my car.
I just threw it on easy mode because I can't like multitask. So
no, that's exactly my problem. I get stressed out if there's like 3 things I have to worry about. I'm very single-minded.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yorth87 gives 20 Danish kroner and says Morrowind had fantastic music, fitting and strange.
Yeah. Actually, if you like the Morrowind music, I feel like I'm like selling this game, but like the Morrowind chapter in Elder Scrolls Online has some lovely new versions of those songs, and they're
that's neat. They kind of harken back to the songs from the original game.
Yeah,
my wife plays the shit out of Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, it's a great little game. Well, it's a huge game, but I've spent far more hours than I would like to admit decorating my houses in that game.
Every day I come up from the office, the kids are watching Bluey and my wife's playing Elder Scrolls Online. And I like to think she hasn't been doing that all day. She tells me she's been doing things before I showed up.
Yeah,
but sure.
It's an extremely easy, relaxing experience. There's like no challenge in the combat at all unless you start doing public dungeons and things.
Well, that was ever thus with MMOs in my experience, because they just want you to, stand there like knocking numbers off each other.
Yeah.
They won't actually challenge you. You might alienate the whales. Chris S. gives £5 and says, Grant Kirkhope's Banjo-Kazooie scores are just the best. I can listen to them endlessly, so full of joy.
I'm very happy chat is bringing up Banjo and Persona right at the start. The Banjo-Kazooie score is legitimately one of my... rare of that era. From Donkey Kong Country through even the Perfect Dark and GoldenEye soundtracks and then into Banjo. Some of my favorite soundtracks ever. And I talk about this with Banjo a lot, but I love the element of it where the overworld castle has a theme, but as you approach the various worlds that you jump into, that theme song will adopt the instruments of the world you're about to jump into, so it'll seamlessly become kind of piratey as you approach the pirate level, or it'll introduce sort of like jingle bells as you approach the Christmas level. Such a cool little touch that I think is still amazing today.
Alex Armstrong.
Sorry. Someone said Street Fighter 2, and you can't deny that. That's undeniably great soundtrack. Back from the days where the melodies were a little more memorable, I suppose.
Speaking of, Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says Sonic's classic pop funk to his modern rock and EDM. Yeah, original 16-bit Sonic music was one of my earliest memories of a video game soundtrack just being something I just wanted to listen to by itself. Mystic Cave Zone in Sonic 2. That's probably one of my favorites still.
Yeah, I mean, I think with a lot of things, the design limitations of the hardware at the time produced a lot of creative solutions and really memorable things, both in terms of mechanics and art, but as well as music. Yeah, I'm happy that it wasn't just like an immediate, you can record anything you want at your disposal, because I feel like having to think inside that box created some...
Well, I think that's kind of what we see with gameplay, because I was writing about like this, how Silent Hill 2 remake kind of looks exactly the same as the Resident Evil 4 remake, which kind of looks exactly the same as the RE2 remake. And all 3 of those games used to be very visually distinct.
Yeah.
And I think what it is if you take away parameters, if you take away like... limitations, counterintuitively, everything starts becoming homogenous, it all starts becoming the same.
Yeah, and that can happen in music as well. Like as a musician and producer, you very much sometimes the best way to stand apart is to choose a lane rather than doing a bit of everything and making everything super what's the word I'm looking for? Like those games are super good looking, but for me, maybe some of the atmosphere. Do you know? Actually, one great example of that was Bully on the PS2. Right, Bully on the PS2 had this. I think due to the limitations of the console, had this kind of glazed look over it. And when they released the remaster on the Xbox 360, it didn't look as nice to me because they took. I don't know. The pixels were clearer and everything, but it was almost like a fog had been lifted off it, And for me, that was part of the atmosphere in the PS2 that made it so nice,
Yeah, there's actually a lot of games of that generation feel the same with the modern versions, while being better looking, don't look as good. Like the Shadow of the Colossus. Human Revolution
looks worse in the remaster because they took away the yellow filter.
Yeah, they took away our
divisive yellow filter. It was divisive, but it was it helped the game stand out. People remembered it.
Yeah, you could look at a screenshot of it, you'd be like, "Ooh."
Yeah, you could look at a screenshot and know what it was.
Yeah, and it helped the assets in the game to blend into each other, because when they took away the filter, it really showed up the limitations in the assets and the graphics engine,
It's
my humble opinion.
It's all opinions. It's all subjective. Susiguru 2000 gives €5 and says, "The loadout music from XCOM 2, perfect tune to pump you up to kick some alien butt."
Ooh. I like a good loadout music or a good menu music to get me like psyched for jumping back into the action.
Galaxy map in Mass Effect. Yeah. Another Sam Hulick piece, by the way. Shout out to Sam.
Shout out to Sam and shout out to Elder Scrolls Online, the big two winners of the podcast.
Something I was going to bring up when you talked about limitations. Like, did you ever listen to old classic Commodore 64 chiptune music? They did some crazy stuff back then. You look up the soundtracks to games like Monty on the Run or the Creatures games.
Well, and it's wild
really
because it was
doing as much as they possibly could.
It was a combination of being a musician, but also like being a programmer and having to like figure out like what can I actually do with this relatively new piece of hardware. And so you found throughout all those early generations, the NES or the Genesis, people found weird quirks and workarounds that ended up allowing them to do things that other people weren't able to do.
Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, "Off topic, Subnautica 2 is online co-op. Ruined?" Yes. Let's just say yes. I hadn't actually heard they were bringing out a Subnautica 2.
It just got revealed last week.
I have no opinion on that because I have got music in the first game. So,
bias.
I cannot give an unbiased opinion on that.
Subnautica is one of my favorite games. I love it. I'm serious.
Did you find my song?
I go to the cove where your song is playing, and I just wait there, and I'm like,
it's on the jukebox. You find it like by searching for like a little tape cassette, I think.
Okay. There's a lot I didn't find in Subnautica because there's a lot to find.
I was never able to get into Subnautica, not for lack of trying, but because which is this is the first time we mentioned in the cover art, we have Outer Wilds, which I put in there because that might be my favorite video game soundtrack ever. But after finishing that game, I was like,
speaking of diegetic music.
The whole thing of you finding these different people on the planets based solely on hearing their single instruments strumming across the universe. And it all coming together at the end is incredible. But after finishing that, I was like, I need something similar to this. And a lot of people recommended Subnautica, but Subnautica felt a little too stressful for me.
It's a spooky game. It's a thalassophobia game.
Yeah.
It almost unintentionally a horror game. Just the mere act of exploring the deep seas just sort of automatically brings horror with it.
Scary down there. A lot of weird critters down there.
Nier Automata is Nier Automata has been mentioned in the chat, and like I would have to agree there.
Yeah, Keiichi Okabe. That's one of my favorite recent scores. Incredible. Nier Automata and Replicant, both great.
Yeah,
the Brain Sturgeon. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was saying someone said Bloodborne, and I'm just like, I'm such a FromSoft fanboy that I don't want to even start on those games because I won't shut the fuck up about them. But yes, all of the From Software games.
So I've had the weird opinion. I love FromSoft. I feel like their music isn't stuff that gets into my head, even though I've put up 1,000 hours into all their games combined. Like I can't draw their tunes from memory in the same way like a Final Fantasy song.
Well, if I played the Dark Souls boss music now, you'd probably immediately get some kind of muscle reaction to that.
Sure, I'd get worried that Ornstein and Smau are going to.
For me, it's more about the atmosphere with those soundtracks rather than having memorable. Like, especially the DLC they put out this year for Elden Ring had some of the most gorgeous soundtracks I've ever heard. It's absolutely beautiful. But I mean, don't let me start on Elden Ring. Don't let it happen.
All right. The Brain Sturgeon gives €2 and says, Steph Sterling, check. Irish Music Jesus, check.
Yeah, we
had Graham Stark on a while back as well.
Yeah.
Going through all the old contacts, post-escapist bods.
Gwyn's theme, yeah, exactly. Plong, pling, plong, pling.
Yeah, there you go.
Yahtzee will wear a green hat in 7 weeks. Gives €2 and says, Willy Fiddlers, Willy Fiddlers, Willy Fiddlers.
Is that like a Beetlejuice thing? Is that going to appear in my mirror?
I think it's a reference to a joke I made once.
Oh, also,
yeah, I see we're down to 7 weeks. Yeah, this slightly ominous poster who keeps changing their name to reflect the passage of time, who seems very sure I will be wearing a green hat in 7 weeks.
I'm excited to see.
Maybe they know something we don't. Local Apotheke gives $5 and says, Yahtzee, have you ever considered that you look a touch like Hugo Weaving with a curious look at Weaving's character in 2018's Black 47? If you say so.
You know,
I always thought I had a young Terence Stamp thing going on.
As someone who makes things online, it's always weird to be told, "Hey, you know, you look like this person."
Yeah, I don't get the.
I don't always see it when people mention it. I mean, I get the Jesus thing. I understand that. Like,
well, that's just long hair and beard. That's easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I had some. Oh, God love them. There were a couple of like people handing out religious pamphlets called to my door the other day. And I'm not shitting you. When I opened the door to them, I was wearing a long white t-shirt. There was a moment where they kind of went like that. And unfortunately, I had to break their little hearts and say, it's not for me, but thank you very much for the offer.
Okay, I just looked up Hugo Weaving in Black 47. And yeah, now you mention it, I have got this sort of dodgy thing going on with the back of my hair. Because I asked them to just cut everything uniformly short last time I was at the barber.
Yeah.
It sort of
I guess I was just thinking of like Agent Smith and Elrond from Lord of the Rings.
I guess I can see it too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been getting more and more grey in the beard since the kids were born.
Oh yeah.
They've got like a photo right after my eldest was born where I'm like still brown as the day is long, and look at me now. That's what it does to you.
That's why I look 30 at 44, because I've no kids.
Oh Christ. I love my children very much. They have enriched my life. Okay, that'll cover me.
Fox D child services are watching.
Fox D gives $5 and says, Mojave song is still stuck in my head 5 years later. My favorite Gav song and my all-time favorite game. Deal another hand and play.
Thank you. That song was an absolute fucking nightmare to create, and I'm glad it did so well because it was so painful to create. It took me a month and a half, and like it's an 8-minute song, and with all these different sections and parts, it's like a kind of progressive structure. And my wife was driven crazy by hearing that chorus over and over and over, and she knew how tough it was for me. That just to troll me. Can you see behind me? There's like a white little box there with a waveform on it that I'm pointing at.
Mm-hmm.
That is Mojave song. The waveform. My wife got it framed just to troll me because I had such a nightmare with that song.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, they say all great art requires suffering.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Valhalla Calling has certainly caused me no end of suffering. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, there you go.
look up what was going on the set of Apocalypse Now as well.
Yeah.
Jewel Rogue is €10 and says, we'll watch the VOD later, but gonna say I couldn't imagine a better pod host than Marty. Gav of Miracle of Sound as guest as well. Damn. Also extra for Star Veg. Bought it today. Can't wait to play.
Star Veg, that's your game. Star Veg.
Yes. Starstruck Vagabond, my game that I
like
made.
calling it Star Veg. That's nice.
Party Pirates?
It's kind of wild. You guys just make things. You just make art.
I'm in a sort of creative block mode at the moment. I'm just focusing on the day job, but I got a game I want to start making and I've got a book I want to start writing, but it's just, pushing yourself over the edge.
Yeah. Burnout.
Because once I start writing the book, that locks me in. That locks me in for like another year.
Mm.
So I've been starting to blame the Lexapro. I'm thinking maybe I should just go off Lexapro so I can get really anxious again. And maybe that'll be the creative juice I need.
More suffering for your art, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Party Pirate gives £2 and says, for music, Halo leads the way, especially ODST. Can you hum the Halo theme, though? I'm not sure I could.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, I should ask Nick, I suppose.
Yeah, they're Gregorian chants. Yeah.
See, I
love that one because it sounds like kind of Irish Celtic music. It's almost like River Dance or something, that Halo, Halo 3 soundtrack.
Yeah, I could vaguely hum the Uncharted theme tune. That's the one that's got that sort of epic vibe.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. I remember liking it, but I don't remember. I remember it was done on horns, but I don't remember the actual melody.
It's like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
I agree with the person who said Halo ODST as well. That was a really cool little soundtrack. It was kind of like almost a film noir, a techno sci-fi film noir vibe going on with it.
That whole game was. I wish they did more games that felt like sort of like one-off experimental things like ODST. I thought that was great.
Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, what's the best Zelda music without saying Wind Waker? Oh, you cut me off there, Alex Armstrong.
Ooh,
but I think Wind Waker is still the Zelda game I've played the most.
I love Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Especially the remastered version with the faster sailing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cuts out a lot of the bullshit.
Yeah.
In terms of just letting a game linger on its title screen, Ocarina of Time's title screen that has sort of the sunrise to sunset Link galloping on the horse across Hyrule Field.
You see, in title menus, I'm just going to say Elden Ring again. Like,
yeah. Really okay, so I do remember the Elden Ring title music. Yeah. I remember something. Yeah, I think Ocarina or Majora's Mask, if I had to pick, might be my
Deus Ex Human Revolution had fantastic title music as well. Like, it was just really sucked you into the atmosphere of the game.
I still remember the original Deus Ex title music. I did like a lyric version of that once for a laugh.
Nice.
Of the original Deus Ex title music.
Yeah. Put on a trench coat and fight some conspiracies, etc. Fungus Finder gives $2 and says, Minecraft's older tunes still stir something in me. How old is Minecraft now? There's got to be like a whole generation of people with a lot of Minecraft nostalgia now.
I mean, I think it came on the late aughts, right? It's like almost 15 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first public build launched in May 2009. Jesus.
It was a while before it really took off, though.
Yeah.
I remember it was the YouTuber CNanners who helped it to kind of find a big audience.
Leonard Bloom gives €10 and says, the Professor Layton OST was the first music I enjoyed. I also loved the Bioshock Infinite OST. That game introduced me to CCR. Also, a plagiarizing time-traveling music is brilliant world-building.
I did like that. I like the Barbershop Quartet.
Yeah. All Bioshock games have fantastic soundtracks.
Agreed.
Snake in the Garden, member for 11 months in tip jar. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks.
I Believe in Doo-Doo Man gives $5 and says, "Oh my god, Liquid Nights and Disco Lights creator, my looped anthem. Give this one a listen. 4 studios to make more bangers from coming."
Thank you. That is my Disco Elysium song that they are talking about there.
Oh, what a game.
Yeah, beautiful. Probably, in my opinion, the best game ever made.
Wow.
In terms of writing, easily my favorite game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the music.
Didn't mean much
I don't
to
know
the publishers, apparently.
No, but did any of you who heard that song notice that in the chorus the chords are the same as the music from the bar? That's like a little Easter egg in there.
Oh, that's cool. Like the hardcore fans to be able to draw a link between them.
Mm.
Fast gives £9.99 and says, "Hi Gav, love your music. Nerdcore is my favorite genre. You, JT Music, and Hala CG are my faves. For game OST, Cyberpunk 2077 takes the cake, especially the samurai tracks. Chipping in is infectious."
Yeah, JT are great guys. They're friends of mine, and we've collabed a couple of times. And yeah, it's such a lovely little scene. I feel a little outside of it, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't, because a lot of nerdcore music tends to be more modern, contemporary sounding music, like rap and hip hop and things. And I feel like my genres I pick kind of tend to fall a little outside of that. And I feel Miracle of Sound now, especially in the last 2 years, has appeal outside of it as well. But it's such a nice genre, and they're so supportive of each other. Like every time one of them puts out a song, the others will promote it and like plug it, and they're such a lovely crowd, the Nerdcore. Shout out to the Nerdcore gang.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yahtzee will wear a green hat in 7 weeks, comes back with €5 and says, "Miracle of Sound, I'm a huge fan of your Doom songs. Even made an AMV to Bringer of Pain on my other channel. P.S. Willy Fiddlers, Willy Fiddlers."
Nice. We're considering putting Hell to Pay in the live set next year. We'll see.
Yes, congratulations on plagiarizing Gav's song. Yeah, so we're green hat in 7 weeks.
I feel like that's how you know you made it. If you get an AMV made out of your song, it's like you in Linkin Park. Yeah.
People plagiarizing my songs is a topic that has been very not near and dear to my heart over the last couple of years.
You know, it came up a lot in your Wikipedia article I was reading the other day.
Yeah, and even that stuff is quite old, but like in the last 2 years since that one song blew up, like half of my job started to feel like it was chasing people down for money they owed me, unauthorized remixes, people covering the song, all this kind of stuff just had taken over my work life.
And it's so hard to know how to approach that without coming across like the asshole, I guess.
I stopped caring, honestly, about being the asshole because I realized how much money I had been missing out on by not claiming my music on YouTube and other people making that money instead. And I'm like, well, I don't feel bad about this because you're taking money with my art. So
yeah,
I'm going to have a share of that now. Thank you very much. You know,
no, absolutely.
And thankfully I have got companies to do that for me now, so I don't have to manage all of that shit anymore because it's a fucking nightmare. It actually was like really the amount of covers and remixes and stolen, sped up, slowed down, nightcore. Like there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos of like my music being taken all the time, you know?
And I'm sure having to spend time tracking that down, like just saps you of any energy to like want to be creative and make something new. Yeah.
This year, especially with introducing live music and everything, like I usually make like 12 to 15 songs a year. This year I've only made 2, you know?
Yeah.
So, but thankfully now with the manager coming on board and everything, it'll free me up to start actually making music again. But yes, people plagiarizing music is not fun for the creator.
Support indie creators, everyone. Have we mentioned we have a Patreon? Lampy gives $5 and says, "Side bet then, seeing as Marty rules lawyered me, how long before Marty mentions the Katamari soundtrack?"
We didn't mention the Katamari soundtrack at all.
Man, that would have been my third game of songs I would just listen to out of context.
I'm ashamed in us. That felt like one of those moments when the first Katamari came out to where I was like, oh, there's this entire genre of of music and style of music that I just didn't know existed. It felt the same way, like it was probably a couple years earlier that I first saw the anime Fooly Cooly, and I was like, oh, everything's different now. Like I now know that there's this entire world of music that I've never heard of. Yeah, Katamari's so good.
Fungus Finder gives $2 and says Portal 2's dynamic music, lasers, faith plate, etc.
I didn't even realize the music was dynamic in Portal 2.
Well, did you notice when you jump on a faith plate, it like just a little like extra percussive track sort of
that's
fades
cool.
in for a little bit?
That's cool.
You know what I wish more games would do, and this was the thing that happened in Metal Gear 5, I think. So there was like the baseline soundtrack, which was like a kind of a drone or something, and as the action would ramp up, different elements would be added on top of that. Like the extreme opposite of that would be, for example, Oblivion, where you're walking around peacefully and then suddenly you hear dum 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 dum.
Yeah.
Metal Gear kind of ramped it up and ramped it down again by adding and taking things out. And I feel like I wish more video games would do that because it's such an elegant way to approach the different dynamics of gameplay.
Yeah, and almost like subconsciously convey information to the player without them really realizing it. That like, oh, the music has changed, and so something is clearly happening.
Yeah,
it makes you think of how in the last phase of all the boss fights in Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, suddenly they'd add vocals to the to the music tracks, and that's how when you know things are finally getting serious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and sometimes in games, like I will deliberately avoid combat encounters because I want to keep listening to the overworld music.
Casey Jones gives $5 and says, when I need to get through the 9-to-5 work rut, I always like marathoning the original Spyro the Dragon trilogy soundtrack by Stuart Copeland.
Yeah, that was there was so many of those colorful 3D platformers of there, even the non-Nintendo ones, your Spyros, your Crash, your
the Crash Bandicoot like theme music is pretty iconic when I think back to it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to turn down the volume on the other PC because I'm getting messages.
No worries.
It's getting pinged.
Yeah, that's how you know you're popular. Tsunami Dusha gives $20 and says nothing, as is their pattern.
Thanks, Tsunami.
And then Zaratha gives $5 and says the obligatory Yasunori Mitsuda can't go without Chrono Cross. Weird as a sequel to Trigger, but musically it is the perfect evolution.
Yeah, that's I feel the same way. I like Chrono Trigger more than Chrono Cross as a game. I think Chrono Cross's soundtrack is arguably the best JRPG soundtrack ever. It is phenomenal how like thematically it fits with the kind of island hopping nature of the game. Really good stuff.
Fox D gives $5 and says licensed music is great until the licenses expire and the game ends up delisted and lost to history, like Spec Ops: The Line.
That's why you get a forever license.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
I think like in the 90s and aughts, they realized when you were putting down soundtracks for like Tony Hawk, I don't think they were thinking that far ahead.
Yeah, I think
something similar happened with Grand Theft Auto games, that some of the songs had to be removed from the remasters.
I think so. Yeah. These days they just add like streamer mode. I suppose they could just worst came to it, you could just patch that into Beyond by default.
Yeah, but yeah, that's supposedly the reason that.
Who is putting I like this feature that when we talk about a game, it comes up on the screen. Is there like someone?
Oh, that's Eric. That's producer Eric.
Yeah,
he's a literal wizard. Because he even asked like this morning. He's like, "Oh, do you have any things you want me to queue up?" And I'm like, "We're just like most of this is just going to be us being like, remember that game? That was cool."
I'm impressed how quickly they show up.
I like to think Eric is actually living like 10 seconds ahead of us, and I don't know how that happens, but it's pretty incredible.
Well, you can see the super chats that are coming up, so I assume he's going off those.
You know what? I like to think he's living in the future.
Okay. Or he's just an AI. Just a very sophisticated one.
Yeah. Could be.
Nearest25 gives 25 rons, whatever they are, and says, to Gav, what's a game series that you'd like to make a song for but haven't gotten around to? P.S. I'd love for you to make a Darksiders song.
Ooh.
Well, the one that used to come up a lot was Dragon Age Origins. Not the series, but the game. And I actually did try and make a song for that. It just wasn't very good, so I didn't put it out. And inspiration's a funny thing. Even when you love something, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be inspired by it. You know.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
The big example for me the year before was Ori 2, which was my game of the year and which I absolutely adored. Absolutely adored the story. I loved the gameplay, everything, and the music. Oh my God, was it Gareth Croker, I think, did the soundtrack?
Yeah, incredible
Oh
soundtrack.
my God, absolutely beautiful. And I just could not come up with any good song idea around it. So that would be your reason usually. It's but no, trying to think of something that I wish I could have done a song for. I don't know. Maybe Demon Souls.
Ooh.
But yeah,
John.
These days I'm only really interested in very rare video game songs. I'm doing other stuff now, so yeah.
John Brooks gives £20 and says, always had a place for Hell March from Command & Conquer, but the Rome Total War map music is pure nostalgia for me. Gav, MOS's Half-Man song has been on my work playlist since 2019. Thank you for an awesome rendition.
Yeah, that's an oldie actually. That song's must be over 10 years old now.
Yes, well, it must have been back when Game of Thrones was still good.
Yeah, exactly. Back when Tyrion was worth singing about before he was absolutely ruined in the final series. I remember we were watching that episode and I said, if he fucking hides them in the crypt, I'm fucking done. I'm done with it. If he hides them from the dead people in the crypt full of dead people, this show has officially jumped the fucking shark. And what does he do?
You know what? At least we can all agree no one has a better story than Bran the Broken. I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I don't even know why I was still watching it by the last episode.
I feel like at that point it was just like a sunk cost fallacy. Like, I put so much time into this, I got to see it through to the end.
You know, Mass Effect 3 fans were watching all the Game of Thrones fans that year going oh, you sweet summer
welcome.
child.
Welcome.
Yeah. Jamie D at Mixtape Games gives £10 and says, Tunic is a recent game which really resonated with me and has definitely influenced the music I make for my indie games. Fun fact, I do this using a Nintendo Switch. What, on Mario Paint?
You make music.
That's
wish
a great
Mario Paint on Switch.
That's a really great little game, but unfortunately it was too difficult for me to completely finish it, so I just gave up. About 70% of the way through, I just got tired of beating my head against the wall.
Yeah, it's also to get the quote unquote true ending is so out there that I just was like, I'll just look this up. Someone else did this. I'll just watch this video and pretend I did.
Yeah.
Alex Armstrong gives $2 again and says PS1 platformers Croc and Toy Story 2 had wicked jams.
I think it also helps that these games we played as kids, like anything when you're a kid, you're just way more impressionable and you've just consumed less, so you have more space in your head. And I think that's why a lot of folks go back to their favorite things may have been the things they were introduced to when they were 12. Whether it's bands or music or,
I think it's especially relevant with music because music is a very immediate art form. It hits your brain in a very immediate way. And also music is what's with you through your teenage years in the most situations where you're in the bar for the first time.
Yeah.
Your first kiss might have a soundtrack.
Yeah, or you get a car and you can listen to it while driving.
Your first next thing after a kiss.
Yeah.
Or
That's
why Yahtzee likes Kickstart My Heart so much. Now it all makes sense.
I'd give myself a heart attack. Bookworm776 gives $5 and says, obligatory shout out to Baldur's Gate 3 for having one of the villains sing his own boss fight music. That was an amazing operatic moment.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that, but I have seen the bit in Final Fantasy VI where you have to take part in an opera. And I assume that's exactly the same.
Yep.
It's, and Borislav is, I've spoken to him a few times. He's a lovely guy. He's such an unbelievably passionate creator. He's such a cool dude. And that whole soundtrack was really, really nice. And actually, the music in their previous game, Divinity Original Sin 2, was really, really nice as well.
Fox D gives $5 and says, I dig when Yahtzee mentions his dislike of passive forms of media. That's hard to explain to people. You don't like TV and movies?
Yeah, 'cause it's weird.
No, I just don't like sitting there. I assume I've just perverted my brain chemistry from playing video games all the time.
My wife is the opposite. She just can't play video games. She tries and she's like, I wish I could like share that world with you, but she just can't deal with the having to participate in it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the fun, isn't it?
Yeah, but she prefers her entertainment to be passive, so it's just not.
I guess some folk do.
Yeah.
It feels like, reading a book is kind of like playing a video game because in both cases, the audience has to do some of the work. Like you have to picture all the things that's going on in the book in your head.
Yeah.
Reading is a nice middle ground for me. It's much more relaxing than video games, but it's more involved than TV and movies.
I always like have a book ready on my Kindle on my phone that I can just bring up while I'm walking the dog or something. Otaku Mon PhD gives $5 New Zealand and says, "Keep up the good work, team." Marty, best anime OP.
Oh my God, what a great question. I don't know if it's the best, but the one I am absolutely obsessed with right now is the new series Den, which has just I'm gonna go as far to say it's the greatest song ever recorded by human beings, and I'm just absolutely fucking obsessed with it. I'm gonna put it in the chat so people can listen. It's a combination. The song is incredible, and the opening animation is great. It's entered the pantheon of no skips for me. Never gonna skip this.
Hjorth87 gives 20 DKKs, Danish kroners, and says, "Add to BG3, the silence spell turns off the vocal."
In that song where the guy's singing his song, if he's silent, really? That's really good.
That's a nice attention to detail.
Fuck, that's good.
But what is Baldur's Gate 3 if not nice attention to detail the game?
Yeah.
Retro Guy 200 gives 70 Zaras and says, "I love Spiritfarer's OST, especially because each song created the perfect backdrop for whichever town you entered. It elevated the mini games and zones so well." Yeah, because I kept welling up playing Spiritfarer, and it's usually music that is like the final trigger for me welling up at a game.
Yeah, all of your one-on-one trips in that game to the gate always did it to me.
And the final credits music with the vocals, we're all going to die, and I'm melancholic about that fact. Niras25 gives 10 Rons and says, "Banger OST recommendation, Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel." Kai.
I don't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh! I've learned everything I know about Yu-Gi-Oh! Recently over the past few weeks by editing a couple of Jesse Schwab's, taking a look at some of his scripts for his personal channel where he does a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a big blind spot for me. I was a Pokemon and Digimon guy.
Yeah, I've watched Pokemon, and I've watched Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series, but that's about all I know about it.
There you go.
John Brooks gives £10, says, "Marty, music that is part of the gameplay, Tetris Effect from a few years ago. It would grow from simple sounds as blocks hit to full songs with lyrics or symphonies by the end of the level."
Yeah, that's a great one by the folks who made Rez. And I didn't realize in this century that you could make Tetris feel fresh, but this was one of those games that it made me feel stuff.
Is Rez the one where you're climbing towers by the really guy who used to get angry on Twitter all the time?
No, that was Fez. The guy who used to get angry on Fez was where you climb towers, and the angry guy made it. Rez is you're like a little
perfect summary of Phil Fish, the guy who got angry on Twitter all the time.
What Eric's showing right now is Fez. Rez is it's almost like playing Star Fox 64, but in a trancey world where the music is you are creating the music by destroying shit.
That was old school. Was that on the PS1 or was that a PS2 game?
Rez was originally, I believe, released on the Dreamcast and then on the PS2, and then they released a like Xbox Live Arcade version. That was where
I think there's a Rez reference in Astrobot.
I think there might be. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I did find all the bots, so I'm pretty sure. Calabrial gives $4.99 and says, "Can't catch this live, but I'm excited to see Gavin here. Love Miracle of Sound. Don't think I have more music by anyone else in my library."
Hey,
well, awesome. He is Ireland's most popular indie musician, apparently.
And I have made probably more songs than most artist.
There you go.
So
Yeah, just by sheer weight of volume, he's the most popular indie musician.
yeah.
Dale Mellows gives.
When
Sorry.
people complain there hasn't been a new song in a while, I'm like, there are 200 of them.
Go back and listen to the old ones. There's no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got like 2,000 YouTube videos. Go watch some of those. Jesus, give me a break.
2,000? That's so many.
Mm.
Dale Mellows gives $5 and says, Yacht, does it make a difference to you if someone buys your book with cash or an Audible credit? Also, I'm pooping, lol, lol, lol. No, it doesn't make much difference to me. I don't think I get paid either way.
2,000.
I think Audible, I think I get the most
Sorry,
cut from Audible sales.
My head is still going through that Yahtzee 2,000 YouTube video. Like, do you just cry when you see the color yellow?
Oh, we moved on from yellow. Now it's
Right.
Escapist owns yellow.
green, blue, and another thing.
Yeah.
Well, we couldn't be sure how much they were going to claim copyright on, so I just erred on the side of caution when I was designing Fully Emblematic.
Mm.
But no, it's just the day job now. I'm used to it. I'd probably be quite lost if I wasn't spending most of the week making a silly video.
Mm.
Got time to work on my hobbies. That's all I want.
Yeah.
As long as I could think of a hobby to work on, things would work out. Casey Jones gives $5. Says also anything with jungle, stroke, drum and bass, Ridge Racer, Gran Turismo 2, 1080, Ape Escape. If I can't game at work, I at least want to groove.
Mm.
Also,
Yeah,
I feel like
I
this is the
can
point
behind
where we can say that if we have neglected to mention a game, that doesn't mean its soundtrack is bad.
No,
Yes.
It's just there's only a finite. There's only like a finite amount of things I can remember right now.
Yeah.
No, we hate everything you like. Unless
I saw someone earlier was like, I can't believe they haven't mentioned Castlevania yet. And I'm like, I'm sorry. There's just so many games.
This is like, I'll have somebody say to me, I can't believe you've never done a song about insert obscure game I've never heard about. I'm like, man, I'm so sorry. I hate that game,
Yeah. That's always right on the tip of my tongue, but just, don't have anything.
I know. When I'll put like a video essay and then I'll get lots of comments like, you forgot to mention such and such example. I said, no, I didn't forget it. I just wasn't going to list every bloody single example of what I was talking about.
Yeah, there are hundreds of thousands of video games and it's hard to account for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Tinker gives $2 and says, listen to the Eschatos OST, Yosuke Yasui, the goat.
This is one of the rare times where I have no idea what this is.
Well, someone's got to have the more obscure reference.
Yeah, it looks like a shmup. Looks like a vertical shmup.
Oh, shmups.
I don't know shmups. Shmups are too sweaty for me.
Shmups have their own mad, sweaty audience.
Yeah.
They're like MOBAs, but there's less money in it.
Yeah.
Pirate Captain Jack gives $2 and says, AC Black Flag is the last good AC game.
Ooh, I disagree. I really like Syndicate.
I really don't agree with that.
As I persist in saying, it wasn't.
And it's
I wouldn't say it was the
biases. I loved Origins. I thought that was absolutely brilliant.
I can't in good conscience say it was the last good AC game because the only bits I liked it were when it was not being an Assassin's Creed game. I liked sailing a pirate ship and being a pirate. I didn't like hiding in bushes trying to like follow people.
I really liked AC Syndicate. For anyone who is misses
nobody else did
classic AC. Well, it's because people didn't play it. Unity had the big internet kerfluffle of Unity being broke, which was a lie. I mean, Unity was kind of broke, but it wasn't broke for everyone.
Ubisoft themselves acknowledged Syndicate was kind of the shitty one because that's after that they went on like a hiatus to like figure out what the fuck they were doing.
I don't think it was shitty. I think it was so similar to the last few.
Yeah,
and people were starting to get tired of the formula.
And people wanted like big old action RPGs, and that's where the series kind of turned into.
I like Unity, and Unity had the best parkour, in the entire series.
I completely
I'd say
agree.
Unity's in retrospect a little underrated. I think the story is pretty good, at least compared to Syndicate.
I like the sandbox assassinations. Good stuff.
Unity was the first one that kind of opened up the gameplay in that there's no more instant fail bullshit.
Yeah, which was nice.
Like if you're spotted in Unity, you run away and wait for them to stop, and then or you can choose to fight. And I think that's a much better system than they had in the previous ones, where it's like you take one step to the left and the whole mission fails.
Yeah. Oh, jumping in here, Yahtzee, because at this point we got a Ko-Fi dono from Tungsten. Thank you so much. Remember, you can also donate to us on Ko-Fi. Thank you so much, Tungsten. The music that's tied to gameplay, Mini Metro's background music is based on the stations and the passengers and grows in complexity as the Metro expands over time. Fantastic work by Disaster Piece on the game, as well as on Hyperlight Drifter and Fez, the aforementioned Fez. Amazing atmospheric music. Disaster Piece is wonderful. The Fez soundtrack, Hyperlight Drifter.
Also, an extremely kick-ass song by Slipknot.
Yeah, so there you go. Best of both worlds.
Fox D gives $5. It says, going to a franchise film for me is like sitting the final exam for a class I never attended any lectures in. Too much commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a recurring nightmare I have, being back at school, realizing I haven't studied. I know it's a cliche as recurring nightmares go, but, for
me, the nightmare is I'm in school, I have studied, and I still can't remember a shit that I studied. It's like some people's brains just cannot retain information in the way that school demands of you.
Yeah. I get teeth falling out dreams as well.
Yeah.
Apparently that's a common
they're not fun.
anxiety dream. Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, speaking of books, I feel it's been long enough since it let out that I'll ask this without people crying spoilers. Is Jimmy implied to be Mockworld's Jim? Yes, Alex Armstrong. Not so much implied as flat out stated. In my most recent book. Red Dwarf 42 gives $5 and says, just repping for the Folin brothers, R.I.P. Jeff Folin.
Oh,
we talked over my head.
We talked about them on I think they did a bunch of like SNES era games, like some licensed games. I think they might have done like Spider-Man and X-Men, which was one of the hardest games ever made. Block. I think they might have done Block. Oh, and someone said Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball, which was great. Greatest baseball game soundtrack ever.
That's kind of a small niche, but sure. Yeah.
Incredibly specific. It's a list of one, but it's a great sound. Great soundtrack.
Witticism gives $5 and says, the game music that sticks with me most is the really active, energetic stuff that helps drive the action on screen and isn't trying to be background music. Yeah. There's a few of those.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's like, do you want the songs? I guess it's a situation by situation basis where should the song blend into everything else, or should the song take center stage and pull you forward?
Like good driving music is a good video game soundtrack. Where you really feel like you want to be going over rolling hills as it blows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, going across the hills of Los Santos with Tom Petty's "Running Down a Dream." Now, that's an experience.
There you go. Snowbound Wanderer gives $5 and says, daughter's soundtrack for Life is Strange Before the Storm really resonated with me.
I cannot believe how quickly that came up. What the fuck? How did that come up on the screen so fast?
Yeah, maybe we've just grown numb to how quickly Eric does it.
Like, what?
Well, he has the order of all the super chats, so I think he might be prepping the next one.
That's what is happening. Okay.
Yeah. Should I not have said that? Does that like demystify? Like it takes away a bit of the magic?
A little bit.
Just told you Santa's
no,
not real.
You said Life is Strange, and it was there like a second later.
Yeah. A Superb Owner gives $2 and says, time for Yards to sing 0118 999 88199 9119 7253. That's a reference to British television.
Everything's right. I never understand it.
I know. Every time there's just an obscure thing, I should just like to tease you with.
I mean, we're next door, and I don't understand that reference. So.
It's a IT crowd reference.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. Darth Satoris gives 50 Danish kroner and says, 3 of my favorite soundtracks from newer games are Potionomics, Core Keeper, and Sea of Stars. What are your thoughts on these?
Sea of Stars is great.
I
had some guest songs by the aforementioned Yasunori Mitsuda from Chrono Cross.
Yeah, we like Sea of Stars.
Yeah. I don't think I played Potionomics or Forekeeper.
No, I haven't played those two.
Yeah. That's the other problem is that there's so many good indie games out there. It's very easy to.
I know. Potionomics, in my mind, is one of several games centered around running a potion shop, which is a weirdly well-supplied niche these days.
Yeah, it's become like a little cottage industry.
Thought Takes, member for 9 months in the Green Gang, says old RuneScape has one of my favorite soundtracks.
Did you ever get into RuneScape back in the day?
No, that's a different nostalgia crowd, I suspect.
Same.
Pirate Captain Jack, your side dollars, says Uematsu is retiring after Fantasian. His compositions for the early FF games shaped my childhood.
Well, I don't think he said he's retiring. I think he said he's not doing full soundtracks anymore. I think he's just gonna, which a lot of these guys just, they'll pop on and do a couple songs for a game. But I did where I'm in the middle of a full Final Fantasy series chronological replay, and his tunes starting in 1 and then going all the way through. Like his music for 8 is phenomenal. I don't like 8 as a game. His tunes, out of this world.
So he's the one we have to thank for etc.
We're gonna get a copyright strike because that was so perfect.
Yeah,
the channel's gonna be demonetized because of you.
Well, how many points do you get as a composer for just walking all the way up your keyboard and then walking all the way back down again?
He gets a lot of points from me because that was great. That was great.
Sussy Guru 2000 gives €5 and says, I remember the first soundtrack I ever downloaded was that for Age of Empires 3. Thanks for sharing. None of us are strategy guys, I don't think.
No. I know the soundtracks for Civilization are big deals. I know like Civilization was the first video game soundtrack I think to win a Grammy, I want to say, when they introduced the category. And I like those soundtracks. But I don't play the games.
Hunter Roge gives $10, says, can't really think of anything to add that hasn't already been said. Here's $10 anyway. Glad to see you here, Gavin, finally. Been a long time fan.
Hey.
Then the horns emoji. Greg Hodgson gives £5 and says, I always remember the themes in Gunstar Heroes on the Mega Drive, my first memory of music in games.
Yeah, I feel like everyone, they're the first games that clicked with you. Stick with you.
Yeah, I'm going to be running through these things a bit faster because there's still quite a lot to get through, and I want my lunch.
Delicious.
Alex Armstrong gives $2.
How long is this podcast, by the way? Can I go for a wee?
It's a filibuster. Yeah.
Yeah. We end when the super chats end and not before.
Okay, I'm going to quickly run out to the loo and come back.
Oh, go for it.
Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says Paper Mario versus and Luigi. Which music is better? I'd never really noticed the soundtrack of either franchise, if I'm honest.
The one that sticks with me the most is Super Mario RPG. Yoko Shimomura, the composer of the aforementioned Street Fighter 2, as well as stuff like Parasite Eve. That's the soundtrack that maybe it's because that's the one I played the most. But yeah, like I went through Thousand Year Door a couple months ago with the remake, and I really liked it, but like none of the tunes super stuck out. I'm excited for this new one that's coming out, the Mario Luigi game, the Brothership. You excited to pilot a Brothership?
Oh yeah, I'll be all over that Brothership.
Oh no.
Hug gives $4.99 and says, wanted to mention System Shock as a niche favorite. The newish remake kind of lost me by not having the classic medical theme playing when you wake up.
If I've ever heard anyone talk about the System Shock music.
No.
Is that a game you think about the music of?
I remember playing System Shock 2 and thinking, boy, this is a bad place to put music.
Yeah.
Sort of killed the whole atmosphere now.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being that well implemented, if I'm honest. Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, thoughts on Crash Twinsanity's OST being a cappella?
Oh, that is.
I haven't played that, but I remember the a cappella Mario music in Mario Sunshine.
Yeah, which I liked.
Yeah.
I wonder if Twinsanity was directly like that happened in Sunshine, and they're like, ooh, we need to put this in here. Whatever Mario does, we're going to do next.
When was Twinsanity? Well,
it was a PS2 era game, so it would have been probably after. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Would have been around then.
Yeah.
Odd Cam gives $2 and says, any love for the MechWarrior 2 OST? No.
Anything about MechWarrior career.
No, you are wrong for liking the MechWarrior 2 OST. Please hand in your ears. You are no longer entitled to them.
The only robot songs you're allowed to like are from Neon Genesis Evangelion. So, sorry. I regret to inform you.
Dick Honda, member for 7 months in the Green Gang. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dick
And then
Honda.
Longshanks gives £5 and says, I haven't played Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, but I think it's one of the best video game soundtracks out there.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, the thing with the battles near the boss battles near the end of them when the vocals kick into the songs. They're incredible moments.
I remember that. Didn't that game have like crazy metal songs? And different parts would. Yeah, that was.
When I was playing Revengeance, I actually had to turn the music off for some of the boss fights because it was just sort of. I was sort of getting really frustrated. Yeah, overwhelming. My hands were getting too sweaty.
Yeah. I did that in Sekiro, actually. And if you're ever struggling with the bosses in Sekiro, that's a huge secret tip from me to you. Turn off the music because it's so clattering and distracting and like adrenaline pumping. And actually with Sekiro, you kind of need to be calm.
Yeah.
And when I turned off the music, it made the fights much easier.
That being the case, can one really call it a good game soundtrack?
I actually was mixed on the Sekiro soundtrack. I loved the exploration overworld kind of slow atmospheric music, but the boss music in that game was at times a little too much for me. It was very overbearing.
I never really noticed ambient music because I guess that's the job to set the ambience.
Having made music with Japanese instruments, well, VST versions of them, there's a lot of, and this is real music nerd shit here, but there's a lot of high mid-range in the kind of wood and taiko percussion that can be very abrasive on the ear, and when that's clattering into your ear for a long time, it can get very tiring, and that's actually a challenge when we mix any songs that have like Japanese stuff in them to do it in such a way that your ear is, that it's soothing to your ear rather than clattering into it.
Yeah, it is all about those sharp hits, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
The Geneshiro in particular, oh my god, I had to turn the music off for that fight because it was like clang, clang, clang. Yeah.
Also going back really quick to Ko-Fi, thank you so much, Tungsten, with a follow-up message from earlier. Appreciate you, Tungsten. On a completely different note to my previous comment, Ultra Kill soundtrack by Heaven Pierce Her and Risk of Rain 1 and 2 soundtrack by Chris Christodoulou are bloody fantastic. I really liked the Risk of Rain soundtrack when we played it for a game night. I have not played Ultra Kill.
Speaking of boss fight music, the Dancer of the Boreal Valley from Dark Souls 3, like
good ass fight.
My favorite ever boss fight, but also, and a lot of that is to do with the music. It's such incredible, like the way it builds as the place catches fire, and the way there's no actual percussion in the song. The percussion comes from her feet walking on the floor. It's just so clever.
That's cool as hell.
Alex Armstrong gives $2. Says, should OST DLCs cost less, more, or same as game?
OST DLC. They should probably not cost as much as like a $70 game, right?
Well,
is that what we're talking?
No.
I mean, I think comparable to other music. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Like putting a monetary value to art is always weird because money and time and all that stuff means something different to everyone. But
okay.
Someone literally just posted in the chat the same thing I just said about the Dancer of the Boreal Valley.
What if it's you? Think about it.
I promise it's not me, but it's someone called. Is it Ele? They said exactly what I just said about the dancer before I had said it, and about how VatiVidya did a video about it.
Yeah,
it's you from the future.
Red Dwarf 42 gives $5. It says the Hunt Showdown title theme is awesome. I'm a sucker for a good chant.
Love a good chant. Absolutely love a good chant.
And then DMB 99 gives $5 and says, love your sound, Gav. Reminds me of some of my favorite opera metal like Nightwish. What inspired you to do this kind of music?
Nightwish. With the I don't know if you mean the symphonic metal or just the nerdy stuff, but I just felt natural. In terms of Miracle of Sound beginning, it was after a period where my previous band had broken up and I'd spent a year making an album with a record label, which never ended up coming out, and I was a little bit depressed. So I just started making stupid video game songs to cheer myself up and posting them on The Escapist. And it kind of got popular then. And that's kind of what got it going in the first place. But what inspires the songs like now is just, I don't know, it's my job, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find, it's usually just experiencing the art form you're trying to create. Like, I read books to get inspired to write books. I play video games to get inspired to make video games.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. With symphonic metal in particular, though, like, yeah, Nightwish would be a big one. Because there's not really that many bands who do it. But yeah, there you go.
Okay. Still quite a few. Don't worry. Ends in sight. Hawker Bridging gives 4.99 and says, Tears of the Kingdom is the first major release in years with an OST that left an impact on me. I still think about how the theme was used in the end.
Yes.
I think specifically, without spoiling it, that moment near the end, I think the music is phenomenal. I think Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom both do a really good job of using silence in their soundscapes and then folding the music in at really opportune moments.
There's a thing in that game of a certain MacGuffin that you're searching for, and I had it spoiled for me where the MacGuffin was, and it was very upsetting.
Yeah.
That it kind of ruined one of those final moments for me.
Yeah.
Amazing moment.
Yellow gives $5 and says Star Control 2's approach was to have a public contest and the winners got prize money and their music in the game. It was a really creative mix. Wow, that's a nice hustle, I suppose. Hey, you could win the prize of doing work for us.
Yeah, there's always that sort of weird tightrope to walk between, like, oh, we're paying you in fame and notoriety, and it's like, well,
yeah,
that doesn't pay the bills.
Well, I guess they got prize money, so
yeah,
that's an extremely big part of being a musician. By the way, people offering you to work for them for free.
Oh yeah, that's just
being exposure
in general.
Exposure, yeah.
Snake in the Garden gives €2 and says, Eric, what's your favorite game soundtrack stroke song?
Put up a Sonic the Hedgehog game. I know
he's going to pull it up.
Oh, no.
I will do something that nobody mentioned yet. Shin Megami Tensei. When they scored the soundtrack for Shin Megami Tensei 4 with that synthwave industrial soundtrack, it was like scoring a new type of music. I loved it.
There you go. SMT4.
There you go. Brought it back to Shin Megami Tensei. As we
all roads lead to Persona.
I once had a video game company approach me to make a song for free, and when I said no, and they were like, "But don't you want 50,000 people to see your music?" And I was like, "My YouTube channel gets 15 million views a month."
Oh no!
I'm okay, thank you. That was my actual response. I typed to them.
God.
I don't usually flaunt numbers around, but when someone's trying to like bully you with numbers, it's nice to reply with a much bigger number.
Oddcam gives $5 and says, been using Breath of the Wild OST as work music for years. I feel like I know the game well enough. I feel like I know the game well, even though I've never played it.
Yeah.
How did you first hear the music of these games whose songs you love, but you never played?
Maybe
just hanging out on EP games or something,
where you can find, like, a lot of times I'll just, like, if I'm writing, I'll write to, like, kind of like, there's just playlists of like Nintendo songs with rain in the background.
Right. But it wouldn't occur to me.
I'll be like, oh, what's this from? And it's like, Pikmin 2 or something.
It wouldn't occur to me to go out of my way to listen to a soundtrack to a song to a game I'd never played.
Yeah.
These days as well, you might hear something on TikTok or Instagram.
That's true.
Well, that would require me to be on TikTok and Instagram,
I think
which I am not.
Not the old man of you and I.
Were I not a musician, I also would not be on them, but that's unfortunately required.
Yeah.
I only just joined Blue Sky, and that was like pulling teeth. Took like years of Twitter being shitty before I finally pulled the trigger on that.
I don't scroll TikTok though. I don't scroll TikTok, and I try not to scroll Reels either, because it just eats your time and it just fucks your attention span so bad.
Empty calories. Yeah.
Tinker gives $2. Says, I thank VGM for my obsession with jazz fusion. And then Strum Theory gives $9.99 and says, obscure LucasArts point-and-click adventure The Dig had an amazing synth score. Composer Michael Land also wrote the Monkey Island music. Curse of Monkey Island and The Dig are wonderful scores.
When someone mentioned jazz there, it made me think of L.A. Noire, which had a really good kind of smooth noir, like film noir jazz soundtrack.
So did speaking of jazz and the LucasArts era, Grim Fandango, the last game.
Oh yes,
come out of that LucasArts adventure wave, had a great sort of Day of the Dead cross with noir jazz soundtrack.
What's his name? Tim Schafer?
Yeah,
he is really really good for music.
Yeah,
he's a massive music fan.
He certainly lets his musical tastes shine through his work.
Mm.
Did you play Psychonauts 2? There's this whole
I really liked it.
This whole sort of Woodstock inspired level in their game.
That was so good. Yeah. That was the best level in the game, in my opinion. It was great. It almost felt like a Beatles album cover come to life.
I was just thinking it was very Yellow Submarine.
Yeah.
That was wicked.
Jamie D at Mixtape Games gives £5 and says, I used the Switch Korg app to make the music. The game is called Vaporwave Pinball. I used it for my game Hell Screen, which I've sent you folks before.
I love that. Yeah, the Korg app I know is like a big music creation tool that I think the original one, I remember like back in the DS era, you could buy like a music creation app for the DS called Korg.
Dr. Theo gives $5 and says, ever heard of Igor? It's opera metal that combines multiple genres. Yes. I recommend Opus Brain for your first, but be warned, it's quite heavy.
Yeah, my mix and mastering guy Frank, that's like his favorite band, and it's the ultimate band for like music tech nerds.
Right.
Yeah, they're really good.
Tsunami Dusha gives $10 and says, as a Monster Hunter fan, every game has an emotional moment. When you hit the flagship monster for big damage and the triumphant title-themed trumpets start playing, all while uninterrupted gameplay.
I wish I could enjoy Monster Hunter, but just the hour-long boss battles just don't do it.
It's a bit much, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can understand the appeal of it, but it just for some reason just doesn't work for me. I'm like, if I fuck up right at the end, I've wasted an hour. I can't deal with that. You know?
Yeah. We have folks on staff like Casey and Jess who are obsessed with Monster Hunter, and I'm like, that's something I can appreciate from a distance, but I don't think I'll ever get into.
It's the same actually with racing games for me. Like you can do so well, and then you make one tiny mistake right at the end, and your whole thing is fucked. Just that to me is an instant rage.
Bill Byrne gives 130 somethings and says, shout out to old Armored Core music from Software Gems that not enough people have heard. Agitator, Red Butterfly, and Remember are all amazing.
Yeah, I went back and replayed Armored Core 1 and 2 before the new one last year. And their soundtracks were great. Props off, you did good.
Basic Birch gives €5 and says, greetings from Finland. Looking forward to the Miracle of Sound concert in May.
Well, I love Finland, and I've been there 3 times already, and it's my favorite country in Europe, so I can't wait to go there and play for you guys.
Oh, wow.
The Finnish language is just so beautiful to listen to. I don't know if you've ever heard it, guys, but it's just so pretty. I love it.
That's awesome.
Lampy gives £5 and says, Gav, as a musician, what would Marty's theme song be for you? Yahtzee already has one, but I imagine Marty's to be butt rock with a kick-ass AMV.
I don't think I like butt rock.
Theme song for me? That's kind of hard to... Maybe like something by Enya.
Fucking love Enya. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Enya's great. Wait, what's Yahtzee's theme song?
Enya too.
You have a theme song?
The Fully Ramblomatic has a theme song.
Oh,
I suspect that's what they mean.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And also, I did a theme song for your. What was that show you did?
On Civil War. Yes, that was good shit.
Yeah,
we borrowed a couple of tracks from you for the incidental music as well.
Yeah. That was a fun little thing. It was meant to capture both of your personalities in music. That song.
Well, I think you did a good job because it was something I would I got really jazzed listening to. Somehow. Azure Windress, member for 5 months in sponsor-free videos, says, replaying Ape Escape and forgot how much I like its soundtrack. And what games do you like the music but not the game?
Ooh, that's a good... I listened... Oh, you mentioned racing games earlier. I like the Ridge Racer soundtracks. Are really cool. And I have no interest in racing games whatsoever. But that soundtrack just rules.
I just know that every time I went into an arcade as a kid, there'd be something going, Daytona.
See, that was great about arcades, that they had to just scream their songs at you in order to convince you. Like, oh, what's going on over there?
That particular song would be inescapable. It would drown out everything else.
Yeah.
Alex Armstrong gives $2. It says Sega's Outrun lets you choose between 3 great songs.
Look at this. All racing games all the time now.
Fill My Ass Up gives 50 Norwegian kroner and says the music to Crypt of the Necrodancer is pretty good. Something that you can put on your car or go along with the rhythm of your walking stroke jogging.
I mean,
those rhythm action games always need a nice heavy beat.
That username is an album title waiting to happen now.
Oh yes, we've had a lot of fun with Fill My Ass Up over the years.
Yeah. Friend of the show, Fill My Ass Up.
Yeah. Doran Grossman Naples gives $5. It says part of what makes Undertale's music so memorable is Toby Fox's incredible use of motifs. They practically tell the whole story on their own.
There's my answer for the previous question. I really wish I could enjoy Undertale, but for some reason it just never clicks with me. And I recognize how awesome the music is in that game. It's so good, but I just couldn't connect with the game, unfortunately.
I mean, I think that's like if anyone is like, yes, every classic game, and I like them all. It's like, well, there has to be something that doesn't click with you that you appreciate from a distance.
Speaking of games that people wanted a song about, holy shit.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
That has one passionate fan base, and there were people who got legitimately angry that I didn't want to do a song about it.
It's already got a really good soundtrack. I mean,
it's got so many amazing...
Wanting the moon on a stick.
Yeah, it's got plenty of amazing songs in the game that you can listen to.
Inescapable. Zaratha gives $5 and says, Eric, we need to discuss your student loans from Magic School, Mr. Wizard. You're late on those. And Eric had a picture of a wallet ready for that very super chat. Fungus Finder gives $2 and says, stream that never ends, goes on and on, my friend. Well, this is actually only 3 super chats left till the end, Fungus Finder.
Famous last words.
LOTR Fan 193, member for 11 months, says, my family likes Kingsfield, the Ancient City music. And then they give another $1.99 and says, have some money as well.
Does your family gathers around the hearth to listen to Kingsfield music? Because that sounds amazing. But if I tried to explain Kingsfield to members of my family.
Did you know that advertising jingles predate radio?
Where were they played?
What they used to do was they would publish sheet music of their little advertising songs, and you were expected to sit around with the family in the lounge or the sitting room, and you'd all sing the advertising jingle together, reading off the paper.
Wow.
I feel like that was the moment where we realized society was cooked. No coming back from that. Jeez.
And the last super chat, Zaratha gives $2 and says, Nightwish rocks, I'm still a sucker for Tarja, or Tarja, however you say that.
Tarja, I think it's Tarja.
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 Yeah, speaking of Finland, Finnish band, yeah.
There you go.
Are they finished?
Oh, one last one. Tinker gives $2 and says, Marty's theme song is My Homie from Persona 5.
Which, is that the one with the kid in the arcade?
Trolling me now. Trolling me now.
I don't even know how to describe My Homie. It's it's usually when you're in the middle of a character's storyline and some weird shit starts happening. It's a good one. My Homie's really good.
Okay, Lampy gives £5 and says, what's everyone having for lunch, dinner in excruciating detail, please? Gives $1.99, says Yahtzee is good for one fun fact per podcast. And Ugly Stupid Loser gives $5 and says nothing. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to the Windbreakers podcast.
Ugly Stupid Loser. I've never seen you before. Welcome, Ugly Stupid Loser.
I was Yahtzee Croshaw. I was joined by Marty and our special guest, Gavin Dunne from Miracle of Sound. Please plug everything you would like to plug in the next 30 seconds, Gav.
You have more than 30 seconds. You could take your time. Just because Yahtzee wants to eat a sandwich, you don't.
Well, I only have 25 seconds now.
Oh no! Shit! Sorry.
I don't know. I mean, just look up Miracle of Sound on YouTube and Spotify, and you will hear all my tunes. And buy tickets for my live shows next year. We're touring Europe. Yeah, so there you go.
That's really exciting. That you're touring Europe. That's like such a cool thing to say. I toured Europe. Like. That's crazy.
Yeah,
and it's a proper tour, and we're playing some. Yeah. I can't say which ones. But we're also playing at some like big metal festivals next year as well. So.
Bringing the dog out. That's how you know it's the end of the podcast.
Yeah,
He's been in my jacket this whole time.
Oh my god! Incredible.
He likes it in there. It's warm. It's getting cold in Northern California. Yes, I was Yahtzee Croshaw. If you like my stuff, my fully ramblomatic video this week is on the subject of the Silent Hill 2 remake. I think one or two of you have been asking for my opinion on that.
That's the next game I'm going to play, by the way.
What's that?
That's the next game I'm going to play, by the way. Silent Hill 2 remake.
Yeah, it's probably a good pick. To get away from the old fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've also got my usual stream on Wednesday, Yahtzee Tries. Haven't decided what we're playing on that yet, but we'll figure it out. And I've got a semi-ramblomatic video dropping on Thursday for you all as well. That will also be relating to Silent Hill, interestingly. Turns out I have a lot to say on that particular subject.
I'm shocked.
Marty, what else we got?
First off, Skelly Boy. Dropped a $20 dono right at the end. Thank you so much, Skelly Boy. You, level 3 is my jam for all time. Love you, Gav.
Thank you.
Thank you, Skelly Boy. And then in terms of our stuff, later today, normal time, the Hidden Gems crew will be back playing the Dead by Daylight narrative game, whose name I can't remember.
The casting of Frank Stone.
Yes, they'll be playing that. And Jess and Jesse are both Dead by Daylight fans, so it'll be interesting to hear their takes on it. And then tomorrow, our regular spooky streams, 9 a.m. Central, Resi 2 original with Jesse and Jesse. And then we're doing a cheeky one-off at noon tomorrow. Myself, Darren Mooney, and Jack Packard are going to get together, and I'm going to play Zombies Ate My Neighbors, and we're just going to talk about horror movies for 2 hours.
Oh, I remember that.
So there we go.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a good one. LucasArts. Speaking of, then check out. We'll have a bunch of bite-sized reviews going up this week, as well as our roundup of our favorite Steam Next Fest demos. So keep an eye on those.
All right. Well, thanks for watching again. Thanks again to Gav for joining us for this lovely talk. Lovely to see you again.
I can't believe it's been like over 10 years since we met up.
I know, and I can't believe it's been almost a year since Second Wind started.
I know. Wow.
Wow.
You guys are flourishing by the looks of it, which is great.
Yes.
Hell yeah. We're doing great.
Yes, doing very well. Incidentally, please subscribe to the Patreon.
You know what? Support the art you like. I feel like that's the thing. I think if there's one takeaway from this, if you like independent artists, support them.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Hell yeah.
Okay, I guess that'll be it from us then.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Eric.